If you're a high school soccer player who wants to play in college, this video is for you. My name is Coach Alex. I help overlooked high school soccer players become the exact type of defender that college coaches want to recruit. Today, we're going to be talking about the opportunities to play in front of college coaches, which is important because, yes, sometimes players get recruited off of highlight tapes alone or just match film, but a lot of times it's a big advantage if you get the opportunity to actually play live in front of a coach. So, I've done all three of these things myself, these three ways, and I've watched other players do them well, and I've also watched other players do them poorly. And so myself, I went from having 0 college offers my senior year of high school to playing at multiple Division II schools, being a Division II starter, all that good stuff. So I have a good idea of what I'm talking about, and without further ado, we're gonna dive straight into it. I'm gonna go over the 3 ways, the 3 opportunities to play in front of college coaches, and we're gonna go one by one, kind of talking about them. So the first way is a college showcase. You guys probably know what that means. ID camps, these have a lot of conversation on the internet about is it a scam, is it not? And then a visit, I'll step to this side for you. A visit, I wrote /training session. So a lot of times on college visits, you're gonna get a chance to either play with the team or something like that. So that's another common way. And then on the left here, you can see I wrote how. So how you're gonna get this opportunity, how you're gonna make it happen before it happens, during, and after. What you're gonna do before, during, and after. Alrighty, so we're gonna dive straight into the college showcase. How you're gonna do this is gonna be with your club team. So yeah, sometimes if you play at a really good high school, a prestigious high school with a good soccer program, and maybe in your state program, state tournament I mean, a coach might come to your game, but more than likely if you're playing 11v11 with a team, and a college coach is going to be there to watch, it's going to be with your club team at a college showcase. So the main point here is this really depends on what level you play of club soccer. So if you play at one of the prestigious leagues or top youth soccer leagues, you're more likely to have a college coach there. So that's like your ECNL or MLS Next. And then some other regional leagues have a chance of coaches from the region being at those tournaments. You kind of notice when you're growing up, you play these tournaments where there's 4 games on the weekend and then you get a trophy. But then all of a sudden you get to high school and suddenly there's only 3 games and there's no trophy. It's not about winning and losing. It's just about these college showcases. So that's going to be a common way for teams to get to play in front of coaches. Yeah, you're going to do this with your club team. You guys sign up, your coach picks based on your region and your families. Everyone decides, and you pick some of the showcases either in your area or around the country to play in. So what you're going to want to do before they start is right when you get your schedule and you figure out which college showcases your team is playing in, you're going to want to find the coaches in that area or coaches that you are already in contact with and send your schedule. So if you already have a relationship with a coach and you've been emailing back and forth and it's a big tournament like MLS Next Fest, and you think that coach is probably going to be there, you could either just ask or you could go ahead and say, hey coach, if you are going to be there, this is when I'm playing. So you're scheduling it in your email. Tell them what field, obviously, what time, and maybe who you're playing against. Send them, there's a screenshot of your schedule off the app, anything like that. And then also if it's a team, it's a college that you don't have a relationship with, or maybe you just had one email, or maybe they invited you to the ID camp, something like that, but they're in that city. You know, the showcase you're going to is in a city you don't live in, but the school is either in that city or very close in the state, then that's another school you're going to want to send the schedule to because they're probably going to be at least one of the coaches at their school sending someone to recruit. It's a good chance. So that would make sense to send it to a lot of coaches. I'm not going to get into the details on how to write an email to a college coach in this video, but there's a lot of information like how to do that online. So when you get there, so you're at the game, and a college coach shows up and you're like, oh my gosh, there he is. The main thing I want to talk about, obviously the most important, is just playing well. I'm going to write for body language. I'm also going to write details. So yeah, you want to play your best. Obviously, if you have a stinker and play horribly, that's going to hurt your chances even if you get this stuff right. But playing your best is going to be standard, hopefully for you guys, but you also want to focus on body language and the details. And what I mean by that is how you're acting in the in-between moments is how I tell players. So when the ball's out of bounds, are you having a conversation with your teammate about something that's going on during the game, like a strategy? Or are you just staring down at the grass, like picking at your fingernails? When you get subbed off, are you throwing your water bottle and being upset, or are you sitting down, recovering, getting ready to go back in? Those are the kind of things that coaches can't see in your highlight tape, and they can't really catch very well on match film. But in an in-person game, they get a better sense of your personality. Another thing is if you use your voice, that doesn't show up in highlight tapes a lot. If you're a leader, that's going to be part of the details that you want to have outside of just the performance and the gameplay. You want to focus on your body language and details. Okay, I think you guys got that. Oh, and another thing you don't want to run over before the game starts, leave your warm-up lines and say, hey coach, thanks for coming. He's probably there to watch a bunch of games at once. He's probably going to be turning from field to field. He might even be watching someone on the other team or you and some of your teammates. So maybe after the game, if it's super natural as you're walking out into the parking lot, but you don't want to hunt him down and like interrupt them and try to have a conversation with them about your playing career. They're not going to like that. That would be getting the details wrong. And then afterwards, I would say keep the relationship. So keep messaging, update them how your season's going. I'm going to write keep relationship. Just everything that you're already doing by emailing them and trying to build rapport with the coach. And then also, this would be a really good thing to do, I'm going to write hi for highlights. Yeah, so if you're playing a tournament in a coach's city where that college is, and he isn't able to make it to your games, he's recruiting somewhere else or what have you, he doesn't bother coming to your games, you can still, at the end of the weekend, take those 3 games, clip up your best moments. I'd make a highlight tape, say you maybe do game 1, game 2, game 3 in their own video or put them all in one, and let them know, like, hey coach, I didn't see, or what, don't even address it, but just say, here's how I played on the weekend. My team went 2-1. We played against the top-rated team in whatever state, blah, blah, blah. And so, because even though they weren't there and they're not going to get to see you play live, these games have like a real tangible reference point in the coach's mind. He knows that they were this weekend or last week, and he probably knows some of the teams that you're playing against, and he recognizes those fields. You might think that's a silly detail, but it actually really affects the likelihood that they're going to watch them all the way through and value the film that they see versus a highlight tape from who knows how long ago, who knows what competition, who knows what fields he's at, all that kind of stuff. When it's clearly a tournament that he's going to recognize the youth fields, like the soccer fields, that's actually pretty valuable. So you want to send your highlight tapes after the showcase. All right, jumping straight into ID camps, which I know a lot of people like to talk about and call them a scam. I'm not going to address that, I guess, directly in this video. Yes, a lot of these ID camps are money-making mechanics for the schools and for the program. That is true, and if you look at the statistics of how many players get offered to play on that team, it's going to be very, very slim of like all of the 50 or even hundreds of players that show up to their ID camps. That is true and pretty undeniable from most schools. But there is still opportunity at a lot of times smaller schools or lower division schools, and there's always the diamond in the rough. There are players at a lot of programs that do get recruited from camps. So we're going to talk about them, and how you do them is this is going to be individually. So I'm just going to write individual. This is not going to be with your club team. Your high school coach isn't going to help you sign up for this. Your coaches aren't going to say you should be going to this probably, unless you're having a relationship constantly talking about college soccer with them. This is going to be something you're going to want to recruit. You're going to want to research, on your own. And then when a college coach invites you, you're going to have to gauge how specific was this invitation. Did he send this to literally 5,000 kids, or they actually want to see me there? All right, so this is something you do on your own, driving there yourself or driving with your family, maybe going with one teammate or friend. So what you want to do before, and this is key to making this even worthwhile at all, is that you need to introduce yourself. So I'm going to, before the camp even starts, like the week before, the month before, maybe not multiple months out do you need to bother with this. But once sending a random email to a coach saying, I'm interested in your program, versus saying, hey coach, I'm interested in your program, and I'm going to be on campus for the December 2nd ID camp or the July 14th ID camp. I'm excited to be there. It adds a little to the email. I'd put it in the subject line, coming to camp, something like that, so that they know, okay, let me actually read this and see, because this kid's going to be on campus. I should give him a little bit of attention. or it just makes it a little stronger. So you want to introduce yourself. Also, that's a great time to send your highlight tapes, blah, 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 if they don't already know you. And I would say build a relationship again. You'll kind of get a theme of that, because that's going to be a strength. Coaches that you have emailed you back and showed any sign of interest or even have bothered to communicate back with you, you want to try to not annoy them with too many emails, but obviously try to build that relationship. Okay, and then when you're there, what you're going to do at the ID camp to stand out. For me, if I could write one thing, the main point, if I could tell someone one thing at this ID camp, it's the word confidence. Confidence, confidence, confidence. If you show up and if you show up and you're quiet, you don't say anything to anyone, and you go through the drills and you do a fine job, and you're just quiet the whole day with your head down, you are not going to stand out, and you're very likely not going to get any interest from any of the schools there. But if you show up with so much confidence, where you're introducing yourself to all the players that are on your team, that are in your drills, you introduce yourself to all the coaches that are there from other schools and the school that you're at, and you say, hey, I sent you an email on this day, I sent my highlight tape, my name's Alex, blah, blah, blah. And then a lot of times it's going to be players from the school that are current college players that are the counselors that are working the ID camp. You want to build a relationship with the ones that are either your counselor, or that are running the drills, that are handing out the t-shirts. You want to say hello. Okay, I think I'm going to run out of time here on the camera, but you want to say hello and build a relationship with those guys as well. Just because that's going to add a level of comfort, and it's going to make you feel more confident and more in control of the moment. You're not going to feel so nervous and isolated at this ID camp where you don't know anyone. So using your voice, introducing yourself, and being confident is going to be huge. I wrote confidence. And then on top of that, you're at this ID camp, it's probably one day. And even if you play a position where simplicity is a strength, like maybe a center back or you're a defensive midfielder, you still are going to have at least a couple, I'm going to write stand out moments, or maybe stand out plays. So confidence and stand out plays. Because even if you're a center back and your team has a clean sheet, but you just pass the ball sideways and backwards the whole game, that's a strength. That's a really good performance. Outside of an ID camp, that's a great performance. Clean sheet, didn't concede, no huge errors, and I kept the ball. Sure, that's standard if that's your position. But at the ID camp, it's all about standing out. You only have this one chance to make an impression on the coaches, make an impression on the coach. So especially if you're a player that can take, like for an example, if you're a position that takes players on, like a winger or a fullback or a 10 or whatever, usually you have an idea of what a good success rate is for the dribbles, or trying to get to the end line and making a cross, or shooting, going for a shot, the success rate. I would say at these ID camps, that success rate is almost a little bit lowered, because maybe in this position, it would have been better, instead of taking my defender on, I could have passed it backwards. That, we could have circulated until someone else on my team had a better chance. But you pass it backwards and they swing it to the other winger, that winger is going to take on the defender, and he might lose it, but it's going to be more memorable to the coach. So you've got to be willing to play a little outside your comfort zone and try to make these standout plays happen. Shoot more long shots, because even if you miss and they don't go in, the coach is like, oh, that guy, he struck the ball well. You're literally just getting on his radar. Versus if you just pass it sideways, he's going to forget you're there and not know who you are. So you've got to try to go for some standout plays. Obviously, don't overdo it and become a ball hog and just lose the ball every time it comes to you trying to score. That will definitely turn a coach away from recruiting you. But you definitely want to try to go for some standout plays. So at the end of an ID camp, what you do afterwards is going to be thank coaches. I'll just write thank yous and questions. This kind of refers to in-person and also afterwards, after the event, like an email the next following week. If you do get a chance after the event's over, without being annoying, if you walk up to a coach and if they say, like, do you guys have any questions for us? A lot of kids, nervous high schoolers, are going to give them a fist bump and go home. But if you could say, like, hey coach, what did you think about, and something specific from your game, what did you think about my weak foot crossing? I was playing left, you guys had me at left back for this last 11v11, but I really like to play right back. He said, oh, you did a good job with your weak foot. Something that's going to actually, instead of saying, coach, how did I do? he's going to get that question 10 times. He's not really going to know what to say. It's going to put him in an awkward spot. Oh, you did good. We're going to have our eye on you. You know, it's kind of a standard answer. I like the idea of having a very specific question to ask about something in the, you know, how did I, and then you can mix it in with how did I do. You could say like, Coach, I saw you were watching our drill in the morning, and I was really trying to be more creative and try to build something and kind of play make through the middle. Do you think I was doing a good job at that? You know, something like that. It might sound a little bait, you know, anything could annoy a coach potentially or be kind of cringe, but if you do it right, that is the right thing to do. And obviously thank all the coaches. I mean, if you're not thanking coaches after a training session or after an ID camp, then you have problems. That is like pretty standard stuff. So then how? Okay, we're gonna move on from ID camps. I hope that gives you kind of an idea. And then we're gonna move on to going on a visit and training with the team. So how is this gonna happen? This is gonna have to be invited by the coach. You're not gonna just be able to message him. I mean, well, I guess potentially if you're a super high recruit, you could message him and say, can I train with the team? But most of the time, the coach you're gonna have a relationship. You're gonna have, maybe you've seen you at a showcase, you're gonna have been to an ID camp potentially. They could have been recruiting you for a few months, kept their eye on you, sent highlight tapes as they've updated, blah, blah, blah. Eventually they're invited you to campus to come see campus. And a lot of times you're also gonna get a chance to train with the team. So that's a chance for the coach to actually have his eyes on you on campus, maybe wearing their training gear on their field with those teammates, with that level of play. I mean, that's his team, that's the level. He doesn't have to watch you at one of these two places and extrapolate, okay, he did this well at the ID camp against all these stinky players. How would he do, you know, in the college level? He doesn't have to extrapolate, okay, he did well in his ECNL games, but would that translate to the more physical college games? He doesn't have to do that because you're there with his team. So these are definitely a great opportunity if an opportunity to go on a visit and play in the training session. And that's going to happen from being invited from the coach. So what to do before, there's not much right to say here. I would just say, like, be prepared. I'm going to write prepare because that's the main thing. For some people, that could be like researching everything about the school. I mean, at this point, you should know like what degree you would study at the school. You know, how many people go there, where is it located, is it a city or like a rural campus, that kind of thing. But you should also have an idea of the soccer program specifically. You know, when you're showing up for the visit, you should know how they did last year, like what their record was, how long the coach has been there. I know some guys that I've played with, they were like, we called like researchers. You know, if you'd get to a game, this is from when I was a kid all the way through college, they'd like know all the guys on the other team. They had like looked up the roster and like found their Instagrams and da-da-da. I never did that. I think that's a bit overkill. I wouldn't recommend doing that, but I know for some players that was their strategy. Like, oh, I want to know like they'd go back last year if they're getting an invite to come to a campus. I want to know who was like the captain. I want to know who was the starters, who played the most minutes, and kind of get an idea of like get a layout of the team. So when I show up, I know it's, you know, it could make you feel more prepared. That could be a little overkill in my opinion, but you definitely want to know, like I said, some of the things, general research about how long the coach has been there, how well the team does. You know, are they graduating a bunch of seniors? Maybe you have an idea of like, okay, this guy was an All-American in my position, so he's coming back for another year, or they're transferring guys. Those are the kind of things you can have an idea of before you show up. And obviously you want to have your body prepared. You want to like eat a good breakfast or whatever and sleep well the night before. Don't go on a visit and train in the training session if you lifted, you know, you were doing the hardest workout of your summer or whatever the day before and you're like super sore, or I have an ankle injury and I can barely play, but this is my one chance on the visit. You need to be actually prepared to play. So when you're there, this is a really big opportunity because you're on campus. So you want to build rapport with the team. I would say that means rapport is a fancy word for like a relationship. If you show up and you're super stern and nobody likes you of the players, I'm going to change the lighting a little. If you show up and nobody likes you, none of the players get along with you, and you don't make any friends or connections with the players, that could be a red flag to the coach to think, would this guy actually be a good fit at my school? But if you go and before training starts, you introduce yourself to a couple guys, you're juggling, you're passing the ball around. In the drills, you start using some names that you've learned while you're doing the drills. That just helps you look like you belong and you deserve to be there. And then comfort, you want to build rapport, because that's also going to give you some comfort. I wrote comfort down because it makes you feel more natural and you can play better when you're more comfortable. I wrote comfort because while you're there and you're playing in front of the coach with his program, you want to look comfortable. What I mean by that is you don't need to worry about these standout plays that I wrote for ID camps, because now you're at the level. You don't need to dominate these drills. You need to fit in. Your goal should just be to fit in with the college guys. If you're a high schooler, you should just try to, not necessarily hide, but don't lose the ball when it comes to you. Keep it moving, keep circulating. Don't get exposed on defense because you're smaller or weaker because you're a high schooler. You just want to fit in. I'm not going to write comfort, I'm going to write fit in, because you're playing with the team. So if you can just if the session goes by and I wrote fit in. If the session goes by and you were unremarkable, that probably means you deserve to be there and you could be a part of that team. So that'll be a good way to fit in. But also the coach usually wants to improve and make his program better. So you do want to do pretty well so he thinks you're going to help be a strong player on his team. And then after the visit is over, I'm going to write something you could probably predict what I'm going to put here if you've been paying attention. Keep relationship. A lot of times guys will go on visits after they already have an offer. The coach already wants them to play there. But sometimes if the coach is still trying to evaluate the player, so afterwards, and if it doesn't give you an offer like the day you leave the visit, then you still want to do all the right stuff with keeping a relationship, sending them your new highlight tapes, sending them your game schedules so they get another opportunity to watch you play. And now that you've met them in person and been on campus, you should be able to keep a relationship pretty easily. So those are the three most common opportunities to play in front of a college coach live so they can actually watch you play. We talked about college showcases, ID camps, and going on a visit on campus. And we talked about what to do, how to make them happen, what to do before, during, and after. So if you got any value from this video, go ahead and drop a like. And you can, in the description, there's an opportunity to work with me one-on-one. Like I said at the start of the video, I help overlooked high school soccer players become the exact type of defender that college coaches want to recruit. All right, talk to you later. Peace.